Hey, welcome back. It's Renee with Reset with Renee. I'm so glad to have you here. And I'm doing today's episode on a post I left on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Hopefully, you're following me somewhere there. And if you're not, I invite you to. But I wanted to talk through the post. The post was titled The Gifts of Cycle Breaking. Oh, I share that because cycle breaking is what we talk about when we are called, me, you, to disrupt patterns that are already in place and have been in place for years, decades, or longer in your families, in communities you're a part of, and the systems you're involved in. So this is far reaching. We're talking families, we're talking education, we're talking religion, we're talking government, legal, medical, wherever you are. You may be answering the call of the cycle breaker. And it is not an easy call, and it is not for the faint of heart. And that's why I did a post on the gifts of cycle breaking. Quite a lot of people will start a healing or cycle breaking journey and they'll tap out or they'll pause. And no shame or blame or judgment. That's just a fact. And I've done that. I've taken breaks. I've deferred. I've put off because I wasn't resourced enough or ready enough, or I was too scared. So if that's you, it's okay. When you're ready, you'll be ready. And when you're ready to rally for the next phase, you will. And if you don't, that's okay too. But consider this an invitation to think about how healthy you find the places and spaces and people that you're in connection with, and how authentic and free and empowered do you feel in your body, in your bones, in your heart, in your spirit, and in your mind. So most of my clients come to work with me first. They talk a lot about what they're thinking. Sometimes they talk a lot about what they're feeling, but usually I want to help them get some integration, mind, body, heart, spirit connected. It's a journey and it's a process, and there's a way to get there. And so I've been getting some questions lately from people about, well, how do you work? Like, I'm already working with a therapist and it's not happening for me. Or okay, I get it conceptually, but how do I do it? And so I'm not going to go on into too many specifics. I would suggest you check out my YouTube video. I have a 30-minute video on the how and what of CPTSD recovery, where I share a lot about my journey, specifically things I've tried, things I wish I knew about sooner. So if you want the nitty-gritty details, I invite you to check that out. So this podcast episode, I'm going to give an overview. I think a lot of cycle breaking work is attachment work and nervous system management, and then folding in a lot of other variables. Okay. So before I go into the educational components, I invite you to pause if you can. I know you may be driving, walking, doing chores. Who knows? But if you have a chance to pause or come back to this, ponder these questions. And know that you may not be a trauma survivor, you may not be a cycle breaker, but we're all human. And so you're allowed to have human responses to these questions. And here we go. So, question number one, where do you feel hurt? When do you feel hurt? What situations, what people, what interactions activate feelings of hurt? Are you able to articulate what the hurt is? And so I'm going to input here. For me, this was a journey. I could sense the hurt, but it was so buried. It was hard to actually stay in contact with it. And then to get clear about what the wound was, what the hurt was. And sometimes there were more than one cause for the wound or hurt that I was carrying. And that makes it complex, which is why I know so much about treating complex post-traumatic stress disorder. There's a lot of layers. So if that's you, no, you're not alone. So that's hurt. It could be things outside of you that trigger it. It could be your own internal thought processes that trigger it. You may not be aware of thoughts or interactions. You might just have a felt visceral body sense discomfort. So those are some tells to look for about when you're hurt. And one of the things I like to teach my clients and the people that I work with is, well, how do you meet your hurt? How do you turn towards it? How do you begin to work with it? That's what I'm going to talk about in a few. So that was the first question. The second question is, what fears are you running? What fears are running your show? So it might be like, if I do or don't do XYZ, XYZ will happen to me. There's often languaging or thoughts that travel with fears, and there can be a felt sense of pressure, overwhelm, general anxiety, and sometimes you can't even put your finger on it. You're just aware that it's driving you. So do you know that? Do you have an experience of that, of feeling something behind you or on top of you or inside of you that's just pushing you to do something or not do something? And it's likely exhausting. Do you know what the fears are? Is it about avoiding hurt and wounding? Is it about not getting ahead? Is it about falling behind? Is it about being othered? Are there bigger fears that maybe don't even make sense? Like they feel irrational. There's not even a frame of reference in your life that you can point to, yet somehow you hold that as a truth in your body. It's often what happens with CPTSD survivors. And what I found, especially in the last year or two, is I've investigated lineage healing and learned more about that. Generations ago, your family, whatever they endured, that gets passed down genetically and also through modeling of behaviors and habits and ways of coping. So that's an interesting thing to consider. It's like, what fears and conditioning have you picked up in your human life from your family of origin, from your caregivers, from your teachers, from other authorities that were key in shaping who you are and what you believe and how you operate? That's what conditioning does. And sometimes we have fear that we're carrying that's from our lineage that we can't quite put our finger on, but it's running not only us, but oftentimes several members of our family. So that's something to think about. So when I am working with people, I'm listening for patterns and I'm listening for parts. And so oftentimes wounded parts of us, often younger, will carry hurt, and we've learned to turn away from them at an early age. And so part of recovery is reconnecting with them. But often what gets in the way, through no fault of their own, is what we call protective parts. And those are the parts that are running fear-based frequencies and conditioning, and they're trying to keep us safe and they're trying to protect us. And the irony and paradox is that in the ways that they protect, they usually cause harm. So it can get really messy and layered and complicated. And it usually is for complex trauma. But again, you don't have to have CPTSD for this to apply to you. It just may not be as intense or as layered. So we got to talk about survival energy. That's what survival coding is, what we're running based on our conditioning. And so here are a couple places that you might want to ponder as I ask the questions, okay? Because our survival patterns run parallel with our nervous system responses: fight, flight, fawn, and freeze. They also run parallel with parts work. The protective parts of us will protect in some real basic ways. And so polyvagal theory plus IFS, or internal family systems theory, that combo is a major filter through which I listen to people and I teach them how to detect their nervous system responses and their protective parts. Oftentimes in complex trauma work, we're working with the protective parts first because they're the guards of the wounded younger parts. And they aren't going to give you access until they trust you. And if you're not a child anymore and you've made it 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5 decades into your adulthood, they're probably not going to trust you right off the bat. So that's a process. So I'm getting ahead of myself, but here are some questions to help you listen for and to detect when you're in survival mode, when you're leading with protective parts. So, are you the kind of person who can identify with impulses and action that push you forward, where you strive? Maybe you strive for perfection. Maybe you stay super, super busy and it's really hard for you to slow down, be with stillness. Are you someone who likes to be in control? Are you someone who has to fix things and can't stay with something being in the process of unfolding, especially in your relationships? So that's one. Question 2, are you sometimes in a place, maybe more often than you like to admit, where you feel like you're collapsing, where you feel so helpless, you feel so powerless, you feel so overwhelmed that you begin to believe and suspect that it's hopeless, like it's never going to happen for you. You've tried and you've tried and you've tried, and you're not getting a different outcome, and it's beginning to look futile. So if that fits, know that that's another protective part flavor. Okay. The third, do you stay busy by distracting yourself? Do you avoid feelings of discomfort or avoid conflict with important people in your world? Do you deny what's happening inside of you or around you? Are you defensive? Is it hard for you to take in information around discomfort? Do you tune out? Do you shut down? Do you stonewall with a significant other? That is your nervous system telling you, I don't have the capacity, support, or resources, or skills to know what to do with the situation. I'm out. The fourth question, do you go to a place of, I'll show you? So this could be coming from a place originally of injustice or being hurt, but it's living, breathing in your body as, I want revenge. I want the upper hand. I'm not going to lose. I'm going to win. Again, that normally happens after you've been victimized or burdened. It's a normal reaction. But really, the self-check here is, do you want to show or prove something to someone or something? So those questions can help you identify Am I being led by protective part energy and nervous system responses? And that's important because if you are, you're human, you may be hurting, but you want to get to a place where you're not protective part led, but a place of being centered, connected to yourself, because that's about being healthy, and what we call self energy in IFS work, arts work. And when we're in protective part energy, when we're in survival energy, when we're in I hurt energy, it's not it. We're not there. So when that's the case, we're not living the best version of us. We're not living the life that we're probably here to live with our gifts, with our experiences, with our expertise, with our strengths. And that's what we want to do. So oftentimes when people reach out to me or they sign on to work with me, this is where they start. They start with one hand, a lot of hurt they don't know what to do with, and a lot of coping that they're familiar with and uncomfortable with not doing. And to be fair, nervous system responses are adaptive coping. They are biologically there by design for a reason. So we don't want to get rid of our protective parts. We don't want to get rid of our nervous system responses, but we do want inner balance, and we do want inner harmony, and we do want peace for ourselves and in our relationships. And the people I know who are walking around with hurt and protective part energy typically aren't describing their relationships as peaceful. Maybe some of them are if they're on a healing journey, but often when you look out in your ecosystem, everybody's not a present day relationship. There's some from the past, from your family. You've possibly partnered, had children, accepted job offers in the past, and the outcome is you may still be living from that decision, from those choices. Again, no shame, no blame, no judgment. But a lot of people that I work with, they're like, I don't understand how I am healing and making better decisions. And yet, when I look around me, my environment, the people that are in it with me, it's like going to the circus. And I don't like it. So that's also something I really want to normalize. So that's where a lot of cycle breakers start. Okay. So the first step of recovery, and I say that loosely because there's other things before this, but it's really about attachment repair. Attachment is something we all need when we're young. We need to feel safely connected with our caregivers. When we are not feeling good and we turn to a caregiver for support, and they don't give it to us, or they give us something else that's not helpful, we internalize and we learn to shut down our needs. And so recovery is really about reconnecting with your sense of self, reconnecting with your needs, reconnecting with your body, what it's trying to tell you, reconnecting with your knowing, not what you think you should be doing, not your fear-based conditioning, but what your inner system is communicating to you. So that means getting to know your protective parts who've been running your show. That means making space for discomfort to get to know your hurt, the parts of you that carry that hurt. And so that's what that's about. And by the way, part of that process is also really reconnecting with your sense of self, with times you felt good, with experiences where you were like, yeah, that's who I am. That's who I was born to be. And sometimes people need help accessing that place inside of themselves. And when that happens, we often bridge to other connections. So that's a piece that I do with people too. So inner attachment work, it's a journey. And then there's outer attachment work with significant relationships and people that are part of your world and are in close proximity with you. Um, and so it's really looking at, have you done your healing work? And from that place, are you showing up differently? Are you embodied in the way that you're interacting? Are you willing and able and beginning to challenge some of the interactional effects that have been in place? So, in unhealthy relationships, family systems, there's often contracts or agreements that are conscious or unconscious about, if you do this, I do that. If you don't do this, I do that. And instead of direct communication, it's running these interactional effects that are really messy and create distortion, create unease. It's the opposite of peace. And so, on a healing journey, it's ideal if the family is part of it, but oftentimes cycle breakers are the only ones. So that's why I start with you. But sometimes family members want to come along. And so I like to let people know that just like the inner journey is bumpy, but rewarding, the same can be said for the outer journey for your family or a system that you're a part of. So, so that's about learning how to communicate, not so much even what to say or when to say it, although that's helpful, but it's like how you are saying it. I can think of sometimes in my family of origin or in my first marriage where I tried really hard to learn how to set a boundary, how to say the thing, how to ask for my needs to be met. And my protective parts were doing the asking. It wasn't coming from a place of, I'm okay no matter what. And while I'd like for you to hear me, see me, witness me, help me, get me, support me, I'm going to be okay even if you don't. And it involves getting to that space of, I'm okay no matter what. I'm empowered, not a victim. And from this space, I'm going to communicate with you about what's working, what's not working, what I'm available for, what I'm not available for, and to see where you're at, to see if you can meet me here, to see if you need support to meet me here. And if you're not able to meet me here, then I need to take a step back and decide what's aligned for me in this moment, and then give space for the process to unfold. And that's where a lot of people bump up into their fear again, especially if they've been doing a lot of hard work. They're like, I got it, I got it, I got it. And they're like, I don't have it. That sucks. I've done all this hard work. I showed up in pure energy and I get dumped on. I get othered, scapegoated. I get no appreciation or recognition that I'm showing up differently, that I'm creating space and an invitation for all of us to move forward together. That's frustrating for cycle breakers and for anyone, for any human, really. Um, and so it's a hard pill to swallow. We need to focus on what we do have control over, and that is our presentation, that is our energy, that is our peace, and to show up in a way that's not going to contribute to hurt and harm of others or of our own parts. Perhaps those that have, especially those that have been hurt before or who are tired of protecting. And so that's a tricky balance to know how to show up in an empowered way, not powering over, not collapsing, not giving up, holding steady in situations where other people aren't. That is some superpower. And I know it's hard. So, checking my notes. So why we do that though is so even if the outcome's negative, we know peace. We don't have regret. And again, not contributing to hurt or harm. That allows you to sleep at night. So, inner attachment repair work, outer attachment repair work with significant others, IFS. I talk about it often. Internal family systems is the theory, the model. It's used in therapy, it's used in coaching, it's used in business. It's a framework for how I listen to myself and how I listen to others. There's 3 levels of training. I did level 1 and level 2 back in 2010. But in the last couple years, as I've really deepened into my own CBT, it's always a mouthful, complex post-traumatic stress disorder healing, I've really deepened into IFS as one of the ways of working with hurt and protective part energy and generating more connection to self, who you really are. It's not the only tool though, but it's kind of like foundational beginning place. So with the inner attachment and the outer attachment, repair work, parts work, if you will, there's other stuff that comes before, during, and after. There's learning skills you didn't learn, and there's unlearning the conditioning that you picked up in survival mode. There's building trust inside. There's learning how to hold your discomfort, hold all of you, parts of you you like, the parts of you that you don't like, or parts of you don't like, or other people don't like. Allowing that to be, connecting with it, befriending it, getting to know it. Whew, that's a process. And then when you allow discomfort, understandably, you want to have ways that you can soothe yourself and you can re-regulate yourself. But before you can regulate, you need to relate. And so that's why this work is so dynamic. And it's hard to say, here are the 10 steps, because you go back and forth. It's a non-linear healing process. So there's that. And there's no bypassing it. Okay. So like there's folks out there who will teach toxic, positive stuff about changing your mindset. Changing your mindset is helpful and it's part of the process, but we're about integration and not cutting off our head from our body, heart, spirit, soul. So I think a healing journey needs to be an integrated healing journey where it addresses all of those aspects. And so when you do that, you're going to dig deep and you're going to have to figure out your foundation for digging deep and for when you're feeling discomfort and when there's no one else around you and your guide or your support person, your therapist, your coach, maybe me, when I'm not available, because no one is 24/7. There's going to be moments when you're by yourself and you're going to need to know how to hold and soothe yourself through something that feels not human. And that is hard. And that is a learning process. And it is so worth it. Because once you get that, you do have the gift of knowing I'm okay no matter what. That's a gift I want for you. So there's no bypassing. You do have to dig deep. And the gifts, which I talk about in the post, are really your own personal reward. Other cycle breakers get it. Other people on a path of healing and personal growth get it. But a lot of times other people who aren't on those paths, who aren't on the journey, they won't get it. And so you hold that as hard-earned wisdom, truth, and knowing. inside. And then through this process, you reclaim your true you. You drop the conditioning. You balance out the protective parts. You're connected to your self energy. You know your purpose. You know your gifts. You drop the mask and you're reconnected. You've reclaimed. You've come home to yourself. And then from that place, you're able to leave a different legacy. You're able to live your life purpose. You're able to engage with others in a different way. And even if nothing changes around you, you will have left your mark, and that's part of your legacy. So it's a legacy you leave for your family, for the communities and systems you're a part of, and for the greater collective. One person making a change, healing, growing, radiates possibility to others who maybe can't see it, who aren't looking, who aren't open for it, or don't know the way. And so you become a beacon for others. So this is the invitation, would you like to come home to you? Do you want to reclaim you? Do you want to heal the hurt? Do you want to soften the protective survival energy you're running because of the fear that we talked about at the beginning? So part of what we learn to do is to alchemize, to transmute the I hurt, which often feels powerless and victimized. Work with it so that you're able to move forward from a place of I am okay, no matter what. That is true empowerment and true healing. And it's a powerful way to connect wholeheartedly in an integrated way, mind, body, heart, spirit, soul. For a lot of folks, it's about coming home to your heart and to your spirit and noticing any blocks that are there keeping you from being connected to that. So if this interests you, I invite you to work with me. I work with individuals one-on-one coaching. I'm now offering family coaching. So if you have a handful or a few members of your family who would like to leave a legacy of health, and you want a guide for that, to plug the holes of information you didn't learn, to unburden and address the conditioning and the survival coding, that's what we do. And if you're in a system as a leader and you're looking around, looking at the culture, looking at the health of your employees, your participants, your members, looking at other leaders, and you're saying to yourself, this isn't it. I didn't sign up for this, but I'm here. What am I going to do? I work with awake and aware and attuned business leaders who want to leave healthier systems for people that come after them and for those that are working with them currently. So those are 3 levels of services that I provide. Again, some of that's one-on-one, some of that is sort of small group, if you will. And then, of course, I consult and teach and present. If you want to work with me as a coach, email me to schedule. We'll get the ball rolling. And if you're not quite ready for all the things that are Reset with Renee, because we're multifaceted over here, and you prefer to start small, like as you are consuming the podcast or maybe the YouTube videos, I invite you to check out my current offering, which is a hour-long class on energetic stewardship. That is available for purchase over at Instagram. If you see the bio, there's a Linktree link, where when you click on that, it'll take you to the space and place to purchase the energetic stewardship class. So here's a plug for that. Energetic stewardship is about how you are and how you show up and how you respond versus react to people and circumstances around you. And that's one of the places that a lot of trauma survivors start. And it's a place I start with my work with others, because we can't change or control other people. We can only start with how we interface with that. And what we don't want to do is drain our energy or lose our energy in a way that's not powerful or as a leak. And we need to find ways to amplify our energy, to purify it, to get connected to it, to draft from people who have it, people, places, and consciousness, spiritual context when ours is low. So that is something that I talk about in the energetic stewardship class, the 6 different energies that goes with that. And of course, there's extra stuff I talk about, like IFS and polyvagal theory. And there's a couple points in the class with each energy. I encourage reflection for you to think about how to apply what I'm teaching and sharing with you in a more personal way in your life. So the gifts of cycle breaking, priceless. What I found personally is that the saying that I've heard before, you have everything inside of you to help yourself, that's true. And there's 2 other truths. For us to do that kind of work, we do need to have support. Part of healing is having a sense of okayness with someone who can hold the stuff that you're having a hard time holding. And so in that way, oftentimes people in the healing arts like myself, who are coaches or therapists or guides or whatever, we bridge that capacity to you until you develop it for yourself. It's a gift to be able to give that and to offer that, and not everyone can. Let me see what else. Yeah, the energy is key. So I've given you some pearls of wisdom. To recap, where do you carry hurt? Where do you carry fear? Where are you operating from protective part energy or impulses? Do you have the peace, harmony, balance, sense of okayness inside of you? Are you able to show up in a pure power, empowered kind of way to co-create conscious relationships with the people you care about? And do you know how to hold steady in the face of someone else's hurt, someone else's protective parts, someone else's dysregulated nervous system? It's not your job to fix that, but to know how to relate to it, how to offer co-regulation, and then how to resolve ruptures and address differences. A lot of moving parts in this kind of work, isn't there? So for those of you who have been inquiring about what it looks like, what it involves, yeah, it's a lot. I'm not gonna lie. And it's not for everyone. But if you've stayed with me this long, it's most likely for you. So I hope you'll reach out to Reset. Shoot me an email, Renee@resetwithrenee.com. Check out my website. If you're not ready to schedule, join my email list. I occasionally send out emails. I won't blow you up, but I'll let you know about offers. If you're doing the social media route, I'm on Facebook, some, Instagram mostly, LinkedIn, YouTube. obviously have the podcast as well. So there's ways to be connected, get to know me and my work, get a feel for me, and free resources for you. Because cycle breaking isn't cheap. It's what I've learned. So I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I haven't already done myself. And one of the things I have done is invested heavily financially in my own personal healing and in the trainings that I need as a healer to show up for you. So I know that when you're ready, you'll take the leap. I can't wait for you to and work with you because I know you're awesome. Thank you for listening and watching this episode of the podcast with Reset with Renee. And I really look forward to helping you reset. Bye now.